password here, just to, did it change town hall, or what is it? Yeah, I'm connected. I'm connected as a guest, right? I would be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Ashley. Thank you. Oh, that's mine.
My packet is not coming up. Did yours come up?
Mm-hmm.
Did it?
But I think
Yeah.
you've got everything in
Oh, I do. I
paper.
got it. It just came up as so slow.
Yep.
Well, we're going to call our meeting to order. It's 8:30. Thank our council members for agreeing to come to this council meeting this morning to adhere to a couple of things that I think we need to take care of. We're going to stand and we're going to have prayer by Councilmember Reed and pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Blanton.
If you would like to pray with us this morning, would you please remain standing? Dear God, I pray that we seek you for advice. Let us not make decisions based upon what we know, but let us act based upon your wisdom. Please guide us, God. We place this meeting in your hands. We place our hearts and our minds in your hands so that you may direct us and make decisions on behalf of the city of Madison. Amen.
Amen. Is there anything that need to be added to our agenda this morning? If not, we just have a couple of things that we need to take care of. One, contract for grant application, CARES Act funding distribution concerning our airport. I believe, Mr. Nunn, you're gonna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the CARES Act, I think you were sent out a little bit of paperwork that explains this, and also kind of the sheet that shows the funding. Through one of the federal bills, they recognize that airports will be suffering, and I think this is, and if I had to guess, this is cast-off money for the big airports, the Hartsfields of the world, and they're getting quite the lion's share of this, but we can apply and for our operations $30,000. So
There's no match.
no match,
just clear money
just
from
for operations. We don't have any salaries there, but we do have maintenance and upkeep. We have power bills and whatnot, and we're going to submit our annual budget for that, plus a couple of small projects that we're going to do in the short term, striping and whatnot, and we'll exceed $30,000 easily. So I request
Good.
that the council approve this application, authorize the mayor and/or manager to sign it as appropriate.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any more discussions? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, none. The vote is unanimously, and we will sign that document. Thank you so much. It's always good to hear good news. Free
It
money. Yeah. Resolution of state of emergency, ordinance of local state emergency amendment 3. And we know back in March, I believe our city extended our state of emergency according to our Governor Brian Kemp. And we have a long version and we have a short version this morning. And Councilmember Eric has, Joyce has put together a short version, which is more simplified to me. And it sort of correlates with the the longer one that we have, but this is more simplified if you've had a chance to read it. Have everyone had a chance to read the shorter version of it?
This is the shorter version,
That
Yeah.
Ashley has just given out, yeah.
I emailed that last night. I don't know if, hopefully it came through, but yeah, it's pretty quick. What I had hoped to accomplish with this or the other longer version is kind of twofold. One, I think it was to extend our local state of emergency, which is set to expire on, I think, Friday.
Friday.
Thursday, 11:59.
30th,
30th.
yeah. Not the state of emergency to declare openings or closings, but simply to declare that an emergency still exists in the city of Madison. And the reason for that was kind of twofold. One, I think it somewhat provides a foundation for some of the public meetings that we are holding that may not be our normal procedure. And the other is it may be required in the future for potential funding from state or federal sources that would require us to be in a state of emergency. The other half of it, I think, that I wanted to accomplish was to kind of advise our citizens that even though we are somewhat, had some of our power taken away by the Georgia governor in terms of what we're doing with our businesses here, that we still recommended, as it says, that our citizens adhere to guidelines set by the CDC and the Georgia Department of Public Health and the World Health Organization, that sort of thing, in terms of distancing, mask wearing that David's demonstrating right now, those type of things. So that was kind of my goal. We have I believe this longer version came out of Athens. They did something very similar.
yeah. They did a resolution, I think.
Yeah, they
They
did
did.
a resolution and they, yeah.
So-
This, I don't know.
Well, I was
Mayor,
gonna
this-
ask, did our attorney get a chance to read over this? Ashley, did he read over it? Did he give any response back to it or anything?
Yes, sir. He reviewed the resolution, and the resolution is actually what you have in front of you. That's about 7 pages long. There's a highlighted portion, I think, that you
Uh-huh.
have questions about, that do know that he had a chance to review the resolution. I didn't receive any type of official amendment to our ordinance. I didn't receive any type of amendment to the ordinance that we adopted a couple of weeks ago. So maybe he could offer a little more clarification. Has he called in yet?
Did he get a copy of the shorter version that Councilmember Joyce did, David, and was he?
I haven't heard from our city attorney either, and I did have that as a major question, whether what I've produced here in this very brief form is going to be sufficient for our purposes.
that's what
I have
we-
no idea.
That's what we
Right.
need to know.
Right.
He's on the phone, isn't he, David?
Yes.
If we could ask him that question, Mr. Carter.
Mr. Mayor, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
I've looked at the resolution, I've looked at the federal guidelines on essential operations that Governor Kemp incorporated into it, but basically what the governor did was open virtually everything except the swimming pool to essential and non-essential businesses, and it basically said that we can't adopt anything inconsistent with it. My recommendation would be, unless we want to get a legal challenge to the thing, is go ahead and adopt what the governor said and add the encouragement that Councilman Joyce wants us to put in there. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and it accomplishes two things. It puts enforcement of that ordinance, allows the city to enforce the ordinance, and also qualifies us to apply for certain items of assistance that David is well aware of.
So, in essence, then you're telling this council to adhere to the resolution that is coming down from our governor to the states.
Yes, because you know, the resolution, basically the governor's, executive order basically puts a lot of, tight controls on how many people can be in a certain place at some time. First of all, he says that there will be no gatherings, and then in typical legal fashion, the lawyer goes down and defines gathering as, more than 10 people.
Okay, that's understandable. So do our council have any problem with just adopting the resolution
But
that?
we can certainly incorporate, what Councilman Joyce wants in there without getting into any kind of, inconsistency fight with the governor. If we did anything any stronger, for example, if we were to say certain businesses can't open, we're opening ourselves up to a challenge, you know, a legal challenge, and how that would come down, I don't know, because I think I sent an email out and said I've been dealing with preemption all my life, and as a rule, anything stricter than the higher level should be allowed, but the governor clearly does not want us to get into making things more stringent than the executive order.
Thank you, sir. So do
When
you have a
is-
problem with, I was gonna ask Mr. George, do you have a problem with us just standing with the governor's ordinance that he set down?
No, I don't, Mayor, and I was kind of curious what the other council members thought about the idea of recommending the social distancing, the CDC things. I mean, this is just kind of my thinking, and I don't really have any sense of what other
Is there-
council members
it-
might think about it.
It sounds like this one wouldn't preclude the other one. We could do both and send a message as a body about our city and its citizens and how we care for it. But what's the end date on the suggested shelter in place is, May 13th, right? What is the end date for that?
For the governor's one?
The so there's the shelter in place ordinance.
Still there.
I think it was through the
30,
30th.
okay.
Through the 30th,
The
Yeah.
30th
Is it,
of this month.
Okay, there's the shelter in place, and then there's the suggested shelter in place that will only apply to, the elderly. I think there's two different dates.
What
or
was
the
May
most-
13th?
one was May 13th.
May
Yeah.
13th, I think
May
the
13th, I
mayor's right.
think.
I think it was May
One is
13th.
the emergency declaration, the other's a shelter in place. They're
They're different.
They're
So
different,
I
okay.
think we gotta get those dates right,
Okay.
and whatever we wanna go with when does this whole thing expire complete? Does he have an end date for anything, for the?
Well, I think it was May 13th, but on the little abbreviated version I came up with, if you look at the first be it resolved, I used some of the wording from our earlier ordinance. Didn't have an end date as, until such time as the conditions necessitating this declaration of emergency have abated. Now, that's really up, if you like this, we can either put in a firm date like we have in the past.
Well,
This
this
will
one
ex-
says
or
April
just kind-
30th, which is Thursday, so it's not,
No,
you know.
that's the date.
That's when it expires.
That's when it
Yeah,
expires.
expires.
Yeah,
And we were
So-
just going to extend it, I think, from.
right.
Okay, well,
So
expire.
either we extend it until conditions have abated and leave that open-ended like that, or we could set a date to match the governor's of May
Your
13th
declaration
or
of
the end of
emergency
May.
doesn't
Yeah,
need to be subjective to say, to have to meet any standards. Whose standards are you going to meet to say that it's abated?
well,
So it needs to be an extension for 30 days
I
for the
think we have to
declaration.
have a
and-
date, yeah.
I think
and
we need a
just-
date also.
And let's go lockstep with the state. They're gonna call the shots anyway.
Exactly.
So theirs is May 13th. Do you want to have that
I
as
think for May 13th, if we extend that, then we will certainly
Okay, okay.
be guided by
We
what.
can go 30 days out. We don't have to stop when the.
You don't have
when
to
the-
stop when it's
Okay.
for the declaration of emergency.
So we
You
want to
don't
go
have
30 days out,
I'll put
council?
30 days.
On Eric's, or both, I guess, right?
Attorney Carter, I have a question on paragraph 5 on page 3.
All right,
It mentions that there was $150,000 appropriated and that
Right.
we've worked with the city of Winterville. I think maybe that was left there in error.
I was wondering about that, Rick.
is that on page 3 of my draft, or is that on page 3 of the governor's executive order?
It's your draft.
Oh, okay. don't worry, I wouldn't worry about that draft. That draft went out before the governor, came up with, I think it was at 5:51 on Friday that he signed that, and I'd already drafted that.
Okay.
But let me look and see what, let me look at it here and see what I've got.
Is that this one, Rick, we're talking about?
It has
Right.
Yeah, there's also on the, I think it's the eighth whereas, there's numbers that seem to be applying more to Athens in terms of numbers of confirmed cases, for example, it's not 114.
Oh, yeah. I had updated that, I had updated the confirmed cases off the CDC
Okay.
website.
And there's also references to, Attorney Carter, to the unified government of Madison. I think that's more of an Athens.
And that was, what happened is, I missed that. What happened is that I got a draft from, Ashley that was off of the, Athens Clark. That's basically the Athens Clark that she sent me. And I just apparently overlooked taking one out. That's a very rough draft.
So this is the Athens Clark, this.
Athens Clark has a
Yeah,
unified
with a
government.
No, I'm
couple-
saying this resolution.
Right.
Yeah.
It was modeled after
Yeah.
that.
Well, then I think we probably are okay if we could just have the dates.
Jimmy,
Yeah, we'll clean that up. I'll get a final draft in accordance with the governor's, order. If y'all just, let me know and let Ashley know what you want in there besides incorporating the governor's, order.
Jimmy,
Yes.
quick question, Ms.
Sure.
If I might. Why do we have to have a date? Because then we're gonna have to make sure that if we're still in it, we're gonna have to extend it. I mean, this basically says that this is the guidelines to work under, and I don't know why we would have to have a date on it.
There's a legal requirement that the ordinance expires within 30 days unless it's renewed.
Okay, so we have to have a date. We can't just leave it open.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. So what
Well,
would like,
the problem with an emergency declaration such as this is there are a lot of hoops to jump through. That's why everybody recites all the whereases.
Well, it also keeps you from declaring an emergency and keeping it in place.
Oh, yes.
That's banana republics do that, and we don't do that here.
Absolutely right, David, yes.
We're a watermelon.
so we would, ask Mr. Carter to go back and revisit this resolution, and get back to us as we could still approve it with his recommendations, I guess. We could still approve with his recommendations.
I got
Well,
one more
30
que-
days out, 30 days out.
I got one more question for Jimmy, if I might.
Sure.
If we have a 30-day, is there any way you can do an automatic another 30 days if it hasn't been rescinded?
No, you have to meet again.
Okay, I was just trying to make sure we don't miss the date and something come up, so you just keep us informed.
Let's not put this on the calendar between Susan and Carolyn and Ashley. It will not go by.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Any more comments from my council? I think it's already been approved, so.
Or you need to take action on that, or did you take action
We
on it?
did take action, go back and,
Would you think you need to vote on both resolutions, the extension of the
Well-
emergency declaration?
well, do we need to have our attorney to maybe so?
You're gonna meet, you'll have to meet again
Yeah.
to do that.
Uh,
You can get him to incorporate all the changes that he needs to.
well,
Yep. Y'all just, I think today is a time to just look and see, okay, we've got the governor's order. What is it we would like to add to, in the nature of the things that Eric talked about?
well, it's sort of similar to me, it's just the same thing here, it's just a little bit shorter. So I would encourage our council, let's just go with the governor's orders, resolution, for the next 30 days and see what happens after that.
I agree.
I agree.
And in the governor's order, Mayor, are the same things that Eric included in his,
Right.
which are maintain the 20
Yes.
Right.
practices that are to help.
Right.
social
But do
distancing,
you
hand
need
washing.
official action to extend the emergency?
Right, we need
declaration?
an official action to extend it for 30 days. Yeah. So we get a council from a vote from
Yeah.
our council to extend the official action of this emergency order for the next 30 days for the city of Anderson.
And we don't need but one document.
Okay, good.
I so move.
Well, sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Attorney Carter, is the document that you provided right for that with the changes that need to be made, or should we, or,
I would simply make a resolution to the effect that, you know, and since Councilman Joyce has got some language he wants to use, I would just say that we have declared a state of emergency. We adopt the provisions of the governor's executive order, and that we, you know, whatever, just put up, and that we add the following to encourage compliance with our with the needs of the community. And then you can just put that other stuff in there. I will insert that and circulate it, and then the city council can do like we did last time, look it over and get it authorized like we did in the past.
So your suggestion, Jimmy, is to pass this now, subject to your adjustments?
Yes.
I
That's what I
agree
thought
with
he
that.
Yeah,
said.
Yeah.
I think Eric, you made a
Eric
motion.
has,
Yeah.
I move that.
Ed made a motion. You get a second?
second.
All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, is none, the vote unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, and I know what you want, and I will get that out today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Is anything else you need me for, Mr. Mayor?
I don't believe so. I think this is gonna take care of you.
If you don't, while it's fresh on my mind, I'll start to work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
I think, Karen, you're giving us a little, description of, I guess, budget meetings, and we know, you're probably having to work a little harder now trying to get things in place, and we're working with you because we know it's gonna take some time because of what we're going through with right now. And I know our deadline is usually, you want everything in place is June 30th. Do you think we'll meet that guideline? And if we don't meet that guideline, what happens?
I have passed out some revised dates for the budget. I
Mhm.
originally, had it all in May.
Speaking to the microphone, please.
Sorry. I really had it all in May.
not on.
But I have revised them to be,
Not on?
Is it on?
Closer.
I have revised, can y'all hear me? Is it on? Oh. I revised the dates to be June. And so, first, the presentation would be to mayor and council on May 29th. But, and then have a budget work session at your regular scheduled meeting in June with a public hearing on June 19th and the adoption, June 26th. And so that would meet the deadline.
Okay. And at this point, do you feel that our city will be losing a good bit of revenues as to,
It's very, right now, I don't have, enough data as far as the sales tax goes. That's why I've also attached a sales tax report. Currently, as of the end of March, our sales tax revenue has been up by 7%.
oh, good.
Oh, wow.
So when the state distributes the money on April 30th, that will actually be for sales tax that was collected in March.
Okay.
And so I'll get a better idea and understanding of what it's gonna do to our sales tax revenue on April 30th. And then even better for when we receive April's on May 31st.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good. Thank you so much.
There's, if I may, Mayor,
Sure.
that related to that, I think it was yesterday, we got all of us, I think all of us, was gonna ask you, are you getting GMA stuff, Ed?
I am.
You are, okay. A great email came from Larry Hansen from GMA yesterday. If you haven't had a chance to read it, there's a great survey they took of 90 Georgia cities, 70% of whom are under 5,000 population. And there's a whole report of that survey regarding revenue shortfalls, where they think they're coming from. For example, this majority think that it's going to come out of property tax too, which kind of surprised me. I know, I was thinking the same thing. But anyways, it's got a
I
lot
don't
of
agree.
interesting information about what other cities are seeing and what they intend to do. 24 cities out of the 70 suggested furloughing employees. I mean, it seems a lot more serious that cities are seeing down the road. Anyway, it's on your email. It's really
So our sales
instructive.
tax, we get, now with internet sales tax, when did we start collecting that number? Last year?
We don't really know what internet sales tax did for us.
I
There's not a
know.
clear indication, and there's also, even though there've been, on the national level, on the state level, it's still unclear to me whether we're capturing all that still. I think it's better than it was, but there's not been a
Like a
a
huge, yeah.
landslide of money coming into us. It's just it's a fairness, level playing field type of thing. But naturally, in an area where we only have less than 20,000 population, we're not going to generate the internet sales that some other place. So
No,
it's
but when,
all relative.
but when you pay, like for example, if I buy something on Amazon, you pay a sales tax, and it's supposed to be collected and distributed locally.
Yes.
So I would think that would be equivalent to spending any money anywhere here, right? I mean, even though.
It's not going. It's not.
It's
Are you
gonna be
suggesting
diff-
that it's going to equal out?
No, I'm just no, because the.
I wouldn't even put internet sales into this right now, because that may stay flat and it may hold. Where we don't know is if all of the panic buying and all the
Yeah.
pushing from school lunches to Ingles or to Walmart or whatever, and all this, and we know Lowe's, the big box sales are double or more for right now, but we don't think that's going to make up for everything else.
No, I'm sure.
We know that it's gonna be a hit. We just don't know what in cities. I didn't do the survey because, be perfectly honest, I'm not that smart. I can't project what it's going to do. It's
Nobody
unprecedented for our economy to go in the tank over a month and a half. So I don't know where
Yeah.
it's all a happy guess. So we'll get the numbers, we'll adjust. Sales tax affects general funds, it affects projects, paving, sidewalks, it affects any of these special projects, building projects that we want to do. They'll just get pushed out or changed in some way, depending on what the effect is. So some of this stuff we just don't know yet.
Are we able to benefit from the cheaper gas prices now? Are we buying?
We buy gas when we need it.
When we need it, we
can't
don't-
take it, we
you
can't.
can't hold it?
But, no. I mean, hopefully we'll.
Can you buy future can you?
We don't buy enough to have to
Yeah.
hedge.
Okay.
Of course, we do with natural gas, but that's part of our normal buying. But,
So there's no advantage to these prices?
gas has been cheap
Yeah.
in relative terms for a while. It's not
Gotcha.
been a big concern. And natural gas is very cheap. If there are any silver linings to this, I mean, you can drive cheaper, just don't have anywhere to go.
And I hope that our city won't have to furlough any employees. I think we're in pretty good shape as far as that goes,
Yeah.
aren't we, David?
I've always said that we don't have any extra employees.
Good.
We run pretty lean. People have to work hard. Sometimes projects get kicked down the road a little bit because we can't get right on them when we want
Right.
to. But we try to keep people busy and keep the town clean, keep things done, and it will have to get a lot worse. And our utilities should be good. This will be the second month that we've not charged penalties, and the second month where we've not done, second month, or will this be the second month? No cutoffs? Second time, so we did not do cutoffs for the March billing. For the April billing, we probably will not, but we're still encouraging, utility customers to call us, tell us what their situation is, tell us how much time they need.
Are you getting those calls from?
Not as many as we probably would like, because there's always seems to be a number that are going to just, if they know there are no repercussions from not paying, then they're not gonna pay till they have to. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's a certain, not many, thankfully.
You know,
But,
I understand that, excuse me,
Yeah.
that all employees are back at work this morning?
Yes,
And
yes.
good.
we're back to full strength, we've got, quite a bit going on still.
Good. Thank
I
you.
was just gonna say, Mayor, that according to this survey anyway, David, the biggest, in the most number of cities that were expecting impacts saw it coming out of fees, permitting fees, utility fees, and other service fees. Like 60 to 70% of the cities that were surveyed thought that would be the biggest loss of revenue. Then farther down the list would be hotel tax. And then the last one, 12 out of 48 cities foresaw property tax revenue is being affected, which that perplexes me. I don't understand that.
And they didn't say, they didn't mention sales tax, and there was sales tax.
Oh, they do.
was, of course,
There's
the top.
40 out of 64. That was one of the other high ones. 40 out of 64 cities. And that was the first one as a layman I would have thought would be most affected, but
So, how is this going to affect tourism here with our Welcome Center here in Madison? What hotels is not generating funds as they should? or-
We rely on regional tourism a lot more than international or whatever else. I'm not the marketing and I'm not the tourism person, but I would think that as people felt more comfortable about getting out, and then we're going to, hopefully we'll be on their radar. I mean, I don't know about events, but if you want to do, if you want to do tourism or sightseeing on your terms and do them out in the wide open, then coming to a town like Madison is a great idea.
Has the Welcome
This is-
Center reopened? Is
No.
it still
No.
closed?
No, they have
No.
not.
This is why trails are so important, because people could come here without, and use our trails and be in town. But I think they're gonna make a proposal, or there's a meeting, the CVB, about, their worries with hotel motel tax soon, so I'll keep y'all up on that.
Okay.
Well, one of their major concerns is a provision in our agreement or contract with them that they don't keep holdover funds. When we give them funds, then they're supposed to expend those, and the majority of those in the year that they were intended. But in this time, it doesn't seem logical or wise to push those funds out and do advertising or marketing when it's not going to be at least bit
Exactly.
effective.
Right.
So
Right.
I've assured Pat, Ms. Hodgetts, and Jennifer that the city's not going to ask for money back because they couldn't spend it in the time. There
Well,
needs
it's
to be
critical time, so we understand.
a
Yeah,
change
yeah.
or some kind of, whether it's common sense language in the agreement and kind of a force majeure kind of thing that somebody has to sign off on if this happens again, that they won't be forced to spend money, because that's black and white in the
Yeah.
agreement. It didn't make sense, and I've said that from the start, but they're real
Well,
concerned
I
about
don't know if you guys saw the Garden and Gun article about Madison, which, I mean, that article will have so much impact on tourism. There were 3 small towns that they featured, and you can thank the Conservancy and Christine McCauley for making that happen. I don't know if you got to see it, but it will carry a lot of weight for our tourism industry, local industry.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, David. So, David, now back to your report. Were you finished, Karen? Were
Yes,
you
sir.
Okay, thank you.
We'll push out numbers as they come in, and then of course, our budget outlook is gonna be quite different, as we said, and we'll have to take a hard look at a lot of different things. My written report is before you. Just very quickly, we've gotten more than half of our parcels secured through kind of 2 different actions. We're going to get started and push for the last three parcels there. We've got to get some appraisals updated, and we're working through the state process on that. This is the Jackson Tract, which is really 3 sides, one end of the runway on 3 sides, and then also a couple of small parcels over on Bass Road. Got a reply from the district engineer, got an email back on Mayor Perriman's request for a meeting up here to talk about pedestrian safety on the state routes, mainly Edenton Road out in the corridor. And they, of course, said they will meet to talk to us, but we've got to let this,
Right, that's
let the
understandable.
COVID-19 pass so we can meet on site. So there, we'll check on that pretty quickly. As a reminder, LMIG, local maintenance improvement grants for resurfacing are out to bid right now. Let's see, May 1st, this Friday, the bid packages are due back. I think my list has gotten a little bit long. I may have to cut back on some of this. We included Bernie Street, College Drive, North 2nd Street, High Street, and Hanover. So depending on where those bids come in, it's quite aggressive because it includes milling out where there's a curb and gutter, the edge mill, so that the pavement will tie back into the gutter smoothly, and there won't be a hump there and built up. And that costs more money. They also, I asked the contractors to price in milling out the speed tables and then reinstalling those after the paving's done. That'll make the whole street, everything will be fresh and brand new. Again, I don't know how much we'll be able to afford to do on all of that. We should just take a snapshot of downtown. We continue to take some trees out as they age out. 2 more on the block between Washington and Burnett Street on the Charles Merritt side, and those stumps will be removed and grates will be put in eventually in those spots and smaller trees. And then we're replacing trash cans as we go along, 8 or 10 a year, but it's starting to show up, and downtown looks really good.
David, on that subject, on the 1-year waiting period, is that so that the soil can settle where the stumps used to be?
Not really, because there's a lot of times there are stumps and there are roots there. It just depends on the timing of which ones are ready. I don't think a year's enough to usually. Amazingly, they can get trees back into those spaces. Sometimes if we're beyond the tree planting, instead of leaving it like it is, which is not safe and unsightly, they'll take the stump out, they'll remove it down below grade, below brick level, and then just brick over it. And then next year, it's no problem for them to pop bricks back out, put the tree grade in, and we've done that several times.
How high would those trees eventually get? Are they gonna be as high as?
They're medium. They're
Yeah.
medium-sized trees.
Yeah.
They're not as high, they're not as large or high as
Yeah.
the oak trees that were there. If you look at Jefferson Street,
Yeah.
West Jefferson, and those trees are probably 25 years old, and they're medium-sized. They provide shade. They do block the signs on the front of the buildings, which we struggle with, that we understand that, but they're nice, just better street trees,
Okay.
and not the very large
Yeah.
oaks that were planted in the past. We enjoyed them for 50 or 60 years, but they've aged out,
Comes the time.
yes.
Well, but we are planting oaks elsewhere, right?
Yes,
Yes,
everywhere we can,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
more
what I thought.
appropriate locations.
Yeah.
Sidewalk expansion, we bid that out a couple of times. I'm still dissatisfied with the cost. I'm trying to figure out a different way to do that, whether it's take on more help. I'm not forgotten about our commitment to do sidewalks, and we've got a couple of projects ready to go. We just don't have the funds to do them for the cost that contractors are demanding.
T-splost.
Even if it's T-splost, even if we had the money, I wouldn't spend $400,000 on you know.
But we can
fif-
add some from T-Splosh to the 50,000.
Oh,
that
no, we're
we've
gonna have to
yearly
do
budget,
that. We're gonna
yeah.
have to do that. I'm just talking about the overall cost of the project is out of range from what we've experienced in the
There's
past.
just not a lot of people that do that, do they, or?
Well,
is-
they are, but they've been busy.
Yeah,
So when
So
you
it's-
have, when the bids come in higher, it's just, how much can you stand?
yeah.
Well, that's one thing you're seeing is the construction is going ahead much quicker and faster
Yes.
right now. and-
Yeah.
And it's pretty hard for us to compete as a city to, I mean, if you go by the Love truck stop out there, I can't believe what they've done. I
Short
think
period
that,
of time.
Short time.
that's gonna come online, I think, much quicker than they anticipated because,
So we might benefit if construction starts go down.
It just remains to be seen whether, you know, for the modest number of houses we build in the city every year, if we got a new development that's, one house is almost complete, and then there are 4 more starting off of Foster Street, you know, and then a few others around, and some subdivisions that are building out, and some infill, but we don't have any mega projects, you know, on the horizon. So, our residential growth is modest. The interesting thing is we got just almost as many units, apartment units going in downtown kind of quietly, with 3 here and 4 there, and all this upstairs space being converted to apartments, which my understanding is they're in high demand. They're very, very popular and efficient. We continue to do upgrades on pump stations, water pump stations. We've been introducing technology and efficiency in those. One project is a pump station at Brownwood Road. It boosts the pressure up to, and it was Rutledge, City of Rutledge put it in years ago, and that was to push water up and put it into their tanks. It was a supplement to their water system, and they don't need that anymore, but the section of Main between Brownwood Road and Harris Hollis is sometimes, there can be some pressure and flow issues, so we're upgrading the pump station at Brownwood Road of the types of pumps and the equipment that will, essentially, it's kind of like on demand. If there's very low flow, the pumps don't turn very much, but if there is, they'll ramp up. They're variable frequency drive pumps and motors. So that's going to be a big help in that area. And then upgrading the equipment in our for our lift stations to monitor and or alarms and whatnot. I know y'all are thrilled about hearing about pump stations. It's all pretty interesting. Very quickly, the Buckhead Road line, we call it Old Buckhead Road line, is complete. All the tie-ins have been done. Water may have been tested. If you put a line in service, you pressure test it to make sure it's tight, and then you introduce slug of chlorine, make sure the pipe's disinfected, and then you flush it, and then you test the water to make sure there's no problem with it. We've delayed putting that line in service because we think pushing water in a different direction is going to cause the water to get upset, or the lines to get upset, discoloration and whatnot. So we're coordinating the startup of that line with our flushing this year, which we've pushed back. We're not doing it, usually we do it in that month of April, but we pushed it back based on the current situation. So we think it'll offer some redundancy in our supply lines. It'll help with some high pressure issues in some areas, and low pressure and low flow issues in others. I have received quotes for the window rehab and brick tuck pointing at the Welcome Center. As you remember, the city took that building subject to a exterior easement that was given to the Georgia Trust for Historic Preservation. So they come do an inspection every year, and some things have popped up the last couple of years, and to be perfectly honest, There's been some deferred maintenance, and it's not a slap at the foundation. They did a good job over time, but it's just time to do some work on the big windows and the brick. And I'll be getting those proposals to you at your next meeting. And that's hotel motel tax
That's what
money
it's right, yeah.
typically.
Yeah.
But we won't have the reserves in that, but we'll do that project as we can get it done.
Can you do the windows without the brick? I mean, is there
Yes,
like a
yes,
way we
yeah,
can
yes.
do?
And we can do the
Like a
windows.
little bit at a time
We'll
instead
do the
of,
windows like 3 at a time.
Yeah.
They won't pull them all
Yeah.
out because they'll pull the windows out, board them up, and take them and put them in the shop, and then
rehab
clean them up,
Yeah.
reglaze them, repaint them, and rehang them. So that'll be good. We call it the Smith Building because that was a condition of the sale. That's the building next door at 162 North Main Street, the future home of the Planning and Main Street Department. The building looks really, really nice. It's not showing off on the outside just yet. We've not done a lot of the exterior work, cleaning up the landscape and buttoning that up, but the inside looks really, really good.
Do they have a time frame when they're gonna move in?
Not just yet, but it's gonna be a gradual move, I think. I think the desks and phones and bodies and computers and then files and other stuff. You ever stepped in downstairs, see how much stuff they have? Planning departments have.
Scary.
They have libraries and stuff and files. So, they'll get that done.
Good.
I'd hate to move my office. I'm trying to avoid it. That's done. The Lambert Park is moving ahead, and the Martin Tot lot.
Looks great over
moving
there.
ahead.
Getting a lot
As a
of
matter of fact, in
compliments.
just a few minutes, I'm meeting a Georgia Power rep over there to talk about the pole, to see if we can do anything to that guy span or guy pole that's right kind of in the middle of the park. We're trying to adjust that. Don't know how much we can do with that, but anyway. And as you know, I called and talked to you individually about the added feature in the Lambert Park is the map feature in the little plaza, and fundraising has begun on that. So get your pocketbooks ready.
well, I asked David if maybe we perhaps can consider the CR Bard money that they gave us, from the, when they were worried about the emissions. What
I was
it,
looking forward
50
to
or-
spending that money 4 or 5 different times.
I know, but if we could, I'd love to see some of that allocated to public art, and I
What it's
know,
gonna cost, do you know the cost of it?
It's about a $60,000 addition, of which is a commitment to raise at least 50,000.
yeah, I
of
think
that.
she was only looking for 10, and I thought maybe we could peel some of that money off for public art, or designate some of that money for public art, whether it's that project or another project. That's just my thoughts, I just was throwing it out there. I know that Eric had wanted, there's discussion about that money, but that was just.
There is indeed.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that is, I think it's up for debate, but if there's any consideration, that would be, great. Or if we can find it somewhere else, that's fine too.
Mayor, I was surprised when I saw the Todd lot over there. I had no idea it was gonna be that large.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nice.
it's
It'll
nice.
be really
They've
nice.
got
Really
the,
nice.
they got the forms in, I guess, for pouring in the concrete pathways. You can kinda get a sense of what the layout will be. Yeah, it's bigger than I was expecting. Somehow I thought of a Todd lot as being like teeny tiny, but it's nice.
When you got a lot of them running around, Eric, you need a lot of room.
Well, there is
Right.
that, yeah. Fill that space quickly, Ed, is that what you're saying?
Yes, correct.
That it? Thank you so much for that.
I'll answer any
report.
questions you have, if you have, and I just, in closing, I want to brag on your city staff. The last couple of weeks, we've kind of been about half strength. Other than the public safety, they've been at full strength, which they have to be, it's the nature of the business. But as far as all other departments, Public Works, Utilities, City Hall, Planning, people have been either working from home or are coming in and working like half-time, and supervisors worked out a schedule. We got all the work done. We got move-ins and move-outs done. We got water taps done, leaks fixed, things got, and maybe not as quickly as we used to, but limbs and leaves got picked up. We didn't miss a junk day, which is important, because I think if we could stop that, people would miss that worse than anything when they set something out at the street and it magically disappears. That's still a good service. But I want to thank the council, the mayor and council, for working with us on doing something that reduced the risk and the exposure for the employees and kind of let us take a breath and take care of ourselves at home. And now we're back operating safely. Still don't have our doors open yet. We'll probably look at that in a week or so. But again, we've gotten everything done. We hadn't had to push anything off. And I also want to thank the public for their forbearance and their patience with us.
Have you heard about any restaurants opening up today since the governor has sort of opened the doors for that?
I've not heard specifically. I'd hate to throw out any names.
I think the Waffle House CEO has said that they are gonna be opening today everywhere. But I don't think Ricardo's is. I think some of them are limited.
Holding off.
Next week, I
Yeah, I
think.
think they're holding off as, buying the time that they feel comfortable, making sure that they've done their part. But I know Waffle House is opening, and I think maybe Cracker Barrel too. I don't know.
I'm not,
Well,
we've
we'll
not,
find
we've
out,
not.
I'm sure.
I
we've-
think
we've
some
not-
of them aren't, and some of them are.
We've not heard.
Yeah.
And Mayor, I was thinking when David was thanking the staff for getting us through that, I just want to compliment David for how he's managed this process in an area that we really don't have a lot of knowledge how to do it right. I think most of the decisions, if not all the decisions that David has made as our city manager in how to run the city, I think has been very commendable. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Double.
I often look at Albany, Georgia to see what a nightmare could have happened here, and hopefully we were able to learn from them to mitigate any,
Absolutely.
disaster that they have. And I listen to the mayor there, and it's just
distraught.
been awful. And
Yeah.
every day there's a death, if not 3 or 4 deaths a day from that exposure a couple months ago, or in February, so.
How about Chief? Chief, is there anything that you would like to say to us this morning? We appreciate you being here and.
Well, I feel like our community's been very good in this pandemic.
To be quite honest, a lot of our calls have actually been down, and so that's a compliment to our city for doing what they know we needed to do to help with this pandemic.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And I don't know if most of you probably know Mayor Linda Blessinger. Blessinger. Her husband passed away a couple of days ago, I believe.
From what? From COVID?
She's, no, he had
No, he had cancer, I believe.
Cancer. And
Cancer.
Linda, I served with Linda on GMEB's boards, and fine lady.
She is.
Very.
A lot of you've heard her testimony, her life
Yeah.
story. And she's mayor of Auburn,
Right.
Georgia.
Great
And
lady.
met and know Dan, and a fine man, fine family, and heart goes out to them. They've really struggled.
Well, there are no more
I
comments?
one other thing, I want to thank Ken has really been carrying a lot of weight. He's not only helped us with all our meetings and go-to meetings and these kinds of things, but the county has also used our space several times over the
Good.
past couple, 3 weeks.
Good.
And we offered that to them and still offer it to them anytime they need it for any of their meetings, for live, virtual, live streaming.
Good.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Chief. Thanks to our council member. Was there anything else from my council?
There was something that's sort of related to our next meeting. We did, I guess, 2 weeks ago, we did have a planning and zoning meeting with 2 zoning issues that were debated and voted on by the planning and zoning. Are those issues coming to our next meeting that we would? So I was interested in that, and also we've had, I know Ed had a meeting with DDA that was through GoToMeetings. These meetings, we seem to live stream. When I watched the Athens one, they were on YouTube. I'm a little unsure as we go to, like, if we decide we are gonna go ahead and do a zoning hearing for those, which would be the normal procedure, or we delay that? I'm a little confused where we go with that, and which format is best for allowing the public to be involved in our zoning decisions.
Well, I guess it just depends upon, if we go ahead with it, and, I don't know how staff feel. How long can we delay that, you know? We do have a council
Yeah.
meeting coming up May,
11th, I
May
believe.
the 11th, you know. I know this room couldn't probably be filled with spectators, but,
Well, is there any way we know who's gonna give the public comment, who has the most concern, and maybe they can come and do social distancing, or is there a legitimate, or is there
The,
a way to abide by
The
the
person
public?
who offered public comment at the planning commission was Celia Murray for the one zoning issue.
okay.
Okay, so I mean,
She could certainly come,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. But, if we need to go ahead with it, we will.
Yeah, and
There
I'm
is-
not
there is a-
sure.
There is a
Is that-
timing, there is a timing.
There is a
aspect.
timing issue involved,
There's
you're
a
right.
clock involved.
Okay.
And I'll have some things that I'd like to try to get done if we just have a brief meeting.
Okay, so at our May 9th meeting, is it May 9th you say?
I thought it was
11th.
11th.
May 11th meeting?
Did you, Ed, I was curious, the meeting you had with DDA, that was on GoToMeetings, right?
The last one was, that we had
Yeah.
set up.
Did you sense that this format, that we do live streaming, or the GoToMeetings format is better for the public involvement and public participation? Do you have any idea?
Well, I was going to talk to Ken about it. I think from that go-to meeting, Ken, I think you can live stream that through our system here so the public could see it on Facebook. It can be live streamed.
I guess we just have to get public comment, that's the most
Yeah,
important thing, right?
Yeah, it's just that if, in this format, if
It's the-
someone,
yeah.
Celia or whomever, wanted to have a comment, we would hear the audio.
Yeah,
We wouldn't have any ability to see her. Now, maybe that's not anything consequential. But I know under the GoToMeetings format, everybody's got a camera on their
Yeah.
screen if they have that kind of computer. I'm not suggesting one is better than the other. I was just kind of curious. Are we going to stay with this live streaming format? Is that the,
Probably so, I would
Okay.
assume we
All right.
will, yeah.
all right?
Mhm. And then if they do have public comments, can they send them in to our city
I don't know
clerk?
what is,
I don't
I
know,
think they can, but I don't think you can preclude them from doing it in real time.
yeah.
There's no substitute for listening to the presentation, for asking and having questions answered. I think you can meet in lots of different ways under the emergency declaration, but notice has been given. I think our attorney's been very clear about that. Sufficient notice has been given, the fact that it is done remotely. And at the go-to-meeting format for the planning commission, there didn't seem to be an issue with getting the point across, or for the commission members to ask questions and have them answered.
Well, couldn't we Zoom her in here? I mean, isn't there a way to have two screens where we could be a screen and then whoever needs to call in could be a screen? I mean, I would think that would just be
I guess that's a question for Ken.
I don't know, anyway. There's gotta be a way.
Ken can make it
Well, if
happen.
it's safe for 10 of us to be in here right now, we certainly could accommodate her, one more person.
One more
Yeah.
person,
Public
yeah.
to, especially,
right.
it sounds like they really got some strong opinions about that issue.
Yeah, and in that same email from Larry Hansen that I referenced earlier,
Mm-hmm.
there's a neat little link on public meetings that kind of apply during COVID. And it's got some interesting things that you should probably look at too.
Okay, thanks. If there's nothing else for this council, we're gonna go into executive session to discuss real estate. Anybody?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we exit regular session and go into executive session for the purpose of discussion of real estate.
Second.
Any more? Any comments? All in favor?
Mr.
Opposed?
Mayor,
None.
can we take, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump the gun, but since we have a 30-second delay, can we pause just for a minute to see if, make sure no one called needs to call in, and
Sure.
if you would like for me to, I'll
Go ahead,
remind them
yeah.
of the
Go ahead.
telephone number is 706-707-8801, 706-707-8801, if you care to make a comment to the mayor and council or to ask a question. We'll delay just a minute to allow for the public to call in.
So on the City of Athens meeting that was YouTubed, how many people were watching that on YouTube? It'll tell you in the corner how many are watching. What do you think? Who wants to guess, since we're just killing idle time here?
200.
That was a good guess, but they weren't that excited. About
I thought it was
58.
about,
Yeah, about 60. I think 60 was the most I saw.
I listened in on
You want to pass this?
Tuesday call, the GMA's Tuesday update, and I think they were between 200 and 300 on that call.
Really?
Yeah, and it worked a lot better because everybody, Larry's a good taskmaster. He asked the press to get off he asked them to declare who was on the line and that everything was off the record, and then they did allow for a few people to make questions or comments.
Was that Zoom or was that?
Look, Eric got one.
GoToMeeting?
Eric.
I think it was, I can't remember which platform it was, but it worked. It worked very well.
So nobody
All
can
right.
call in?
Okay, no call-ins, nothing I can see. We must have covered it all.
I'm gonna sit back and find another cup of coffee. Anybody need to take a quick break before we go into,
coffee sounds great to me.
the vote. Sec,
I think we voted.
we voted was unanimous, like we did vote, yeah.
I second it.
Anybody need to take a quick break before we